Thanks for taking the time to sit and watch this video. It's something that we put together for MSPAssist. MSPAssist is all about enhancing Kaseya and providing some functionality that I think most of you have been looking for quite some time. This is all to do with monitoring and some of the remediation and suspend window features that we've added. So we all know about Kaseya 6.3, policy management, the wonderful additions to policy management, which enable us to assign policies, etc., to the global org, which really makes the whole deployment of policies just automatic. But we've discovered there are still a couple of limitations with this. One, I guess, fundamental one is that if you deploy a policy to a set of machines and you want to actually make a single change to one of those machine settings, the policy will continue to try and override those. It will always be out of compliance and will always push out the new monitor set, especially if you're individualizing a monitor set as we were able to in previous releases. And of course, one of the other things that everyone seems to always ask for is the ability to suspend alarms. We know we can do it at a machine level, but what we've added is the ability to suspend alarms at an individual service or an individual performance counter level. So I'll just jump into our menu, MSPAssist. We've got a whole lot of different bits and pieces here, but today I'll just explain to you some of the settings around our service and perfmon counter management. So by deploying a monitor set using the star all is a really good use of this. Star all will push out a monitor set that basically monitors every service that is set to automatically start on a machine. So it's a really good way to deploy monitoring, ensuring that every service is actually covered. So if a new application is installed, those services that come with that application will automatically be detected just through the standard Kaseya monitoring, counter matching and update list by scan, etc. So you don't actually need to be aware of the new application install and go and add to your monitor set or tweak your policy or what have you. They will automatically just appear in this particular menu. But of course, not all of those services would you want to monitor, and so rather than going back and editing the policy or editing the monitor set, which means there's risk, I suppose, in getting that wrong, messing your policies up, the wrong monitor set ended up being applied to the wrong machines, etc., etc. And we know that individualizing monitor sets doesn't really work now with policy management. We have this concept here that we now, in this particular screen, I have a list of all the services that are currently being monitored across the entire Kaseya installation. So this is non-group, non-machine specific. This is global, if you like. And really what it's enabling me to do now is I can just say, well, okay, I know for a fact that these two services I actually never ever want to get an alarm from. So I can actually just disable those now. So when my monitor sets and my scripts, etc., kick in because it sees these services stopping, this setting here will basically say, well, I'm actually going to ignore those services. I don't really care, so don't create the alarm or create the ticket. And I can do that for, I can do that for all of them. I can just sort of set it on for a few. I could do it just on an individual level if I wanted to as well. But the point here is I'm talking about the service globally across every organization, every machine. This is my implementation default, if you like. I do not want to monitor any of these services. But of course, we do want to have a bit of sort of granularity into this. We do want to be able to sort of switch things off and on at a particular machine level. So you'll see here, now I'm at a machine level, so I've got the group defined, I've got the machines defined. If I go up here and if I just pick some machines, I'll pick something that's got some machines, might help. No, okay. My org, I think I've got some machines in there, and I'll get rid of my templates because I not really interested in templates. There we go, sorry. So now I've got 3 machines. I've got couple of my test servers, etc. If I wanted to, I can just sort of sort these columns whichever way I wanted. If I'm looking for a particular service, let's just say I'm interested in only working with the Acronis service, I can apply a filter. But the concept here is that I can now pick individual services and I can say I don't want to monitor these particular services on this machine, but I want to monitor those services on other machines. So I can now just disable the alarms. So these are all no. So now if any of these services stop on this particular machine, I've basically said same thing here, ignore it and do not create the alarm. I can obviously switch those back on again. And so in this case, I'm going to say yes, I do want to create the alarm. The difference here between the global and the yes is simply if the global setting, which is what I've set here, is, and let's just turn them all on. So I'm globally, I want to monitor every service. I can, by just resetting them all, the global one means that the actual setting at the machine level will adopt whatever the global setting is. So it's sort of like an overriding default. But by disabling the alarm here, I'm overriding what the global setting was. And the interesting thing with that is it sort of toggles both ways. So where I've said no here, that no is going to override the global yes. But of course, if I'd put no here, so globally I don't want to ever create an alarm on this particular service, I can do the inverse and I can set this to yes. And so now, even though the global setting says no, on this one server I will still create an alarm for that particular service stopping. So it gives me sort of two different ways of setting those rules, if you like. One of the other things, so if I just enable them all again now, one of the other things is we may want to enable alarming, but we may not wish to do any remediation. So within our script we might be trying to restart the service. I had a situation just early this week where a client did not want us to restart certain services on a SQL server. When they stopped, he obviously wanted to be made aware of them, but he didn't want us to automatically start them. So if I was to find all my SQL ones in here, what I could do now for this customer is I could say, well, my remediation is off, but I do want to create alarms for that particular set of SQL services on that machine. So the idea here now is I can still create the alarm, but I now have some granular control over what I'm going to do with my remediation. And of course, last but not least is if I wished to, I could also say between the hours of whatever these may be on these particular days, if I click update there, I will actually create an alarm as long as it is outside this particular window and not on these days. So that's effectively a recurring suspend on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday between 3 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. So I now have the ability to suspend alarms at an individual machine, at an individual service level, which I think answers a lot of people's, well, it's on a lot of people's wish list. So we've done the same, essentially, obviously slightly different because we're talking about performance counters, but conceptually the same, where I'm picking all of the perfmon counters that have been assigned to the machines based again on the standard monitoring that's been deployed by standard policy management using standard monitor sets. There's nothing tricky about how the monitor sets are created. It's what we do when the alarm is created and what we do within the scripting, etc. So here I've got my perfmon counters. I've got what my monitor set thresholds are currently set at what the operator is. So if I see an alarm, I will create an alarm if the actual value exceeds 1419 or it exceeds, or if it's under 85 in this case. So what I can do is I can do what's called add an override. Initially, the override value is exactly the same as the threshold value because I haven't actually decided, what I'm going to do with this yet. But here is where it gets quite powerful. I can now say, well, I'm going to set my threshold to 4000. The alarm will still trigger because the monitor set is still triggering the alarm at this point. Okay, but within the MSP module, we will be looking at a value of 4000. So let's just say the actual value of the alarm was 2000. It's greater than 1419, the alarm will be initiated, but because it is less than 4000, then the MSPAssist module will discard that alarm and it actually won't be generated. I could, rather than have an overriding value, I could just say disable. So in this instance, if the alarm is generated, I won't get a ticket here because I've disabled it, or I actually have that same concept. Obviously it's only going to work if I've got it enabled, but here I can do the same thing. I can say on these 2 days, so if I get an alarm value greater than 1419, and if it's greater than 4000, because I've actually enabled the override, I would get an alarm as long as it isn't between these 2 hours on these 2 days. So I've now got the ability to therefore also suspend alarms at an individual perfmon level on individual servers, and I haven't had to go near policy management. I haven't had to edit my monitor sets. They are deployed still via policy management. They are still deployed consistently based on the global org. I'm not having to mess with those and potentially mess up my entire monitoring deployment by inadvertently deleting some counters or popping the policy into the wrong level within the orgs or global orgs, etc. So that's it. So I hope that is of interest. You can obviously get in touch with us if you'd sort of like to hear more or see more of what we're doing. I'm going to do a couple of other videos shortly. I've got some videos around Service Desk, and we've got another video around some password functionality that we've included in the MSPAssist module. Thank you very much for listening.